awards, including Best Actress for Melissa McCarthy, Best Supporting Actor for Richard E. Grant, and Best Adapted Screenplay for Nicole Holofcener and Jeff Whitty. Welcome, Jeff Whitty, ladies and gentlemen.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear us? Nope. All right, yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, in addition to Best Adapted Screenplay for the Academy Awards, you're also nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay for the Independent Spirit Awards and for the BAFTAs, which are, the British Oscars. So my question is, when did this whole thing for you start? Like how long ago did you start writing and adapting Lee Israel's book?
I mean, it was almost 10 years ago, and I wrote Avenue Q. This is what I was known for at the time, which is the show with puppets on Broadway swearing, and so it was a really odd choice. I mean, I'm still amazed they chose me, but it was a smart choice. It was Bob Balaban's intuition, because he'd read an early play of mine that was set. Hello. There you go. Oh, great. Hello?
There you go.
Yeah, so Bob Balaban had read an early play of mine called The Hiding Place. And it was about my friends in New York. I'd lived there 10 years already at that point. And I knew a lot of artists and a lot of sort of the sort of wonderful, cranky, curmudgeonly variety. And Bob saw in that voice Lee's voice. And so I went in and I read the memoir and I related to it about page 4. I was like, oh, I understand.
Page 4.
I understand immediately, and I know this person. So it was a really great choice. I'm so glad they chose me.
Well, back at that time, so the movie was going to look very different. You had a different director. Mm-hmm. You had a different star playing Lee Israel.
But there wasn't anyone attached.
Right. No
at that point. Yeah, it was a lot of. I think the Lord was just waiting for Melissa to pop, and then that's how
she did.
Yes, oh gosh, yes, I'm so grateful.
Melissa McCarthy is so great in this film, and so many times I have read that she's stretching, she's doing drama, and I'm like, obviously they did not see St. Vincent, which was also a terrific film for her, where she was kind of funny but a little more serious. But over the course of the time that you were working, you were adapting Lee's book, did you ever meet her? I mean, did you want to meet her while you were working on the screenplay?
Well, this was sort of my official second screenplay. My joke is that God was like, Jeff, we're going to take you out of theater and put you in film, and so that's sort of what happened. But I didn't want to meet Lee because I had done my previous screenplay was also based on a true story from This American Life about a female bounty hunter. And I met her in person. We got along great. We had margaritas and then went to a shooting range in that order. And and we, but then I'd go in and the notes from the executives would be like, we think her mother should be dead because it'll make her more relatable. And I'd be like, but her mother's alive and we'll be at the premiere. So I wanted to be able to keep some flexibility because Lee's voice is so clear in the memoir. So I said, I want to wait to meet her till after. So I did 4 drafts. I turned in my final draft, and that's the one that went to Lee. And I honestly cannot imagine a more terrifying adaptation than doing Lee's adaptation, but then word came back that she liked it, and I was so relieved. And I was here actually doing a musical at the Amundsen, and I said, well, we'll meet up, and we made vague plans to meet when I would be back in New York. And then it was September 30th of 2011. It was my birthday, my 40th birthday.
Wow.
And my friends were taking me on a bar crawl all around Manhattan, and at every stop I would meet a friend from my past. Mm-hmm. And we were at Julius, and I was talking to my friend Heidi Schreck, who oddly is about to storm onto Broadway with her play, What the Constitution Means to Me. That's a different story. But I was talking to Heidi, and I looked in the corner, and I was like, oh my God, that's Lee Israel. She's right there. That's the woman I was telling you about. I adapted her memoir. I'm going to go over and say hi. And I was a little drunk, and my friends had put like bunny ears on my head and some other costume pieces. And I walked up to her table, and she was talking to a friend, and I said, Lee Israel? And she looked up, and she was like, yes. And I said, I'm Jeff Whitty. I wrote the screenplay of your life. And she said, Oh, I was looking at you over there with those bunny ears on and telling my friend I couldn't wait for you to leave. which is it's the key to a certain kind of friendship and kinship and humor. That with that comment came a tremendous amount of trust that I would not then go, you know what I mean? So I burst out laughing. I laughed really hard because it's what the gays call a read, where basically she punctured me perfectly with her first sentence, and I laughed really hard. And then we hung out, and then we got burgers at Julius a couple weeks later, and just bitched about New York and where it was going and the whole world. And it was wonderful. It was great.
And at that moment you went, I got this. Right?
Well, the thing about Lee and that Melissa gets so well is it's this gigantic heart, and it may be covered in porcupine quills, but it's huge and it's very real and it's right there and it can be hurt. You know what I mean? It could be, but it's when she would give of you that incredible wit and compassion and the smarts. It was like this wonderful, wonderful gift.
So that early on, you know, how much of Jack Hawk was in that early version of the screenplay, and is Jack Hawk like really based on that one person, or is he like a culmination of people in Lee's life at that time?
Well, it's interesting because I mean, part of the reason I responded so well to the book initially was I was like, I know Julius. I hang out there all the time. And Julius, you see in the movie a lot. It's the oldest gay bar in the village, in the city. It really hasn't changed that much since Prohibition.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, you can see the mobsters back in the day painted all their girlfriends, little portraits of their girlfriends all over the walls of Julius. And then someday someone took black paint and splashed it all over their faces. It obscured all of them, except one you can still see. If you look at the phone booth up in the corner, you can still see her gazing out through the black paint. It's that authentic, that bar. So I knew all of the landscape of their world very well. And Jack was not fleshed out so much in the book. You didn't get a lot of sense of his qualities. But I knew that across the street at Julius were the rent boys who would line up on 10th Street. And they would line up and the cars would pull up, and if the transaction seemed promising, they would drive away together. And I thought, oh, that's Jack. That's what he would do. It's the hustle.
Yeah.
You know, because the whole movie's about the hustle. And it was like, so he would go in and warm up, he would hang out with the bartenders, and then go back out on the street and see if, you know, maybe he could turn a trick. And but he's also getting old, he's bleaching his teeth. The cars are not stopping for him so much anymore. He has to go stand under that street lamp that's not working. You know what I mean? And I just got this very clear vision of who he was. And it's not even really in the movie so much. And so it was that knowledge of the city and the knowledge of where it was then. Because I got there in '93 off a bus from Oregon. And the movie set in '91, so it was still very much the same city that I arrived in back then. And yes, and then, you know what I love being a writer, I never want to see the version that I have in my head because I've seen that movie before. I want to see what actors bring to it. I want to see what my collaborators bring to it. You know, and I'll get to Nicole as well and her contributions. That I want to do a work that's incredibly rich. I don't want to do just my perspective because it's not going to sell to a broad market. You want all those different perspectives.
Well, let me stop you about Nicole. Like, so you know, had done numerous rewrites of your own screenplay, and Nicole Holofcener comes on. At that time, she was intending to direct. How did she evolve the screenplay? How did she flesh it out? What did she bring? And then what did you bring after she, like, you know what I mean, came back to you?
I mean, the whole thing is
interesting.
I mean, I think the stereotype is that the writer would be like, how dare you touch my precious words?
Yeah.
And for me, I'm just like, oh God, that's great. I'd love to have my name attached to that. You know what I mean? So I'm still very, very much in the screenplay, but then it's also got this other layer of Nicole, who has a totally different perspective. You know, some of the wonderful stuff in the film about the perspective of being a female writer is something that I just didn't have easy access to, which wasn't my first instinct, but that's what Nicole brought to it.
Right.
So, yes, like I said, collaboration doesn't always have to be, you know, you're sitting there smoking cigars together until 3 in the morning, burning the midnight oil.
Yeah.
Like, and what was wonderful about the film, and my jaw was on the floor when I finally got to see the final cut, was I was so proud that it was done with such excellent taste all the way through. And that it was also largely female driven. It's no accident that it had excellent taste because you know, I define taste as curating the customer experience. That's all it is what, does it seem effortless, easy? Does it, you know, but that takes tremendous legwork that's invisible. And I really, really appreciate the incredible legwork that went in on every level of the movie. You know,
you also don't see the gay community depicted in this way.
Oh, you never see it.
It's so natural. It's so organic. They're just there.
They never have to declare themselves or anything, and that was my intention from the very beginning. Because again, I don't want to write to the niche and have people say this is an important gay film. I want it to be. I just want it to be a movie about wonderful people, and then afterwards you're like, oh my god, the lead characters were a lesbian and a gay man. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because that to me is the true subversive message of inclusion. So yeah, I mean, it's just one of the sort of treats of it, and then also that we see so few lesbian characters at all in our entertainment media. It's like this gay sausage party most of the time. No, it really is. It is, and the gays are always we're always helping straight people make their dreams come true most of the time. That's generally our job. And what I loved was to do something about gay rascals, because I know so many of them, and to do something where. You know, my definition of a rascal is a devil with good intentions. That you may upset the apple cart, but you're not doing it from malice or greed or any of the bad sins. You might be doing it to get ahead, or you might be doing it to make a point. But that you can see with both of them, she's doing it to save Jersey. Yeah, you know what I mean? Jack is doing it just to stay alive. Right. You know, those are very relatable, universal things. You know.
The other thing is how. When Marielle Heller came on to direct, she just set such a great mood. The loneliness. I mean, here's a city, you know, the biggest metropolis in the United States, and you can feel so alone. And the movie really captures that despair, that desperation, that living on the edge. Like I gotta do this so I can pay my rent. I gotta do this so I can get drugs for my cat. You know, like how much of that was in the book? How much of that was in your first draft? How much of that came out of Nicole's contribution?
That sense of, you're talking about the sense of loneliness.
Yes.
It's just so omnipresent in the memoir. It's everywhere in there, and you would have to read between the lines a little bit as far as how was Lee on a date.
Right.
You know, you don't get a sense of that so much from the book, but I could sure imagine it, and it was, and you know, again the vision was continued all the way to the end. Of, you know, I'm 47 years old, so I remember being gay in Coos Bay, Oregon, going, okay, I'm 13, I've just kind of figured out what the deal is here, and where's the information? Yeah. You know, the phone was attached to the wall and on a cord, and didn't have all sorts of, you couldn't look up anything on there. Going to the card catalog, looking in the H's, these index cards, you know, there was no information. So for Lee, I brought that to it as well, this sense of that there is no courtship model for her. She didn't grow up where there was the prom, there was all those things. So how do you carry yourself off on a date? You know?
Yeah.
Suddenly becoming self-conscious, like, oh, I'm supposed to look nice. It's not her first instinct at all. But then like, oh gosh, she looks so nice. You know what I mean? Those sorts of things.
Like, you know, Melissa and obviously Richard, you know, both of them are nominated, but Dolly.
Oh, she's so great.
She's so lovely. She's so wonderful.
I was just thinking today, I want to become a lesbian just to date that character. She's so
sweet.
Yeah, she's so sweet.
You were talking before about like watching, you know, the collaboration, and like the first time you saw a cut of the film and watching what you started, like how it evolved into what it became. Let's talk about Melissa. Let's talk about Richard. I mean, they're all so great.
It's supernatural. It's just, and again, it's one of those things where, as a writer, I'm not attached to my vision. The minute they opened their mouths, my vision went boom out of my head, and it was them, and that's all I can see now. You know, because frankly, when I wrote Jackie, I saw him as being a little bit Jersey, a little bit. He sure didn't have a British accent, but you know, they're both magnificent in it, and you know, to look at a picture of Melissa and Lee, you know, they don't look so similar. Everything else is exactly right.
Wow.
Sometimes she'll just look up at somebody like with that, "Are you going to fuck with me?" look, and it's very much Lee Israel right there. So yes.
Like in terms of you know your first produced screenplay, and you know, you get all this these accolades, this an Oscar nomination. I mean, my gosh. But what was it like for you to sort of work through the process of working with the studios and getting like notes and, you know, from all these different people? Like, I mean, like, what was that, like, what kind of notes did you get that you just went, actually, that's a really good idea? And what kind of notes did you just go, like, that is absolutely absurd?
Well, it was funny, you know, because it was a thing of, I'd done my first screenplay, and I took everybody's notes. I didn't know how to go, hold up, people, you're actually losing the kernel that was attractive at the very beginning, which is what always happens. You know, especially being in the theater, I know the audience very well. I said this to a producer once. I said, do you know how hard it is to make 1,100 people gasp at the same time? You're directly in conversation with the audience. So you need to hold on to your view of their objective ride from the very start, all the way through. Everything you lay is very, very careful. And the movie had wonderful, wonderful executives. And it was my first 3 drafts. I was only contracted to do 3. Were sort of attached to a vision, a directorial vision that didn't quite work with the book and with the story. It went much more into the lives of Mary McCarthy, and all the people that she's writing were sort of these characters in the movie, and it didn't work. And I sort of turned it in going, I just don't feel like this is my best effort. And then Anne Carey, who just deserves every bit of credit that she can get, sent me an email, and she said, Jeff, we came up with a little more money. We would like you to do draft 4 and do your version. Just do it. We're not going to give you any notes. Just go. And that kind of generosity and trust is what makes it's the pros versus the amateurs. It was really the thing. I threw out half of what was there, did a totally different take on it, and that was the one that got everyone excited. So
when you're working. You know, sometimes directors, when you start principal photography, script is locked, don't change a word, that's it, this is what it is. Was that the case with this movie? Was, you know, did you and Muriel sort of like evolve while you were shooting, and like did Richard and Melissa and even Dolly, like, you know, have contributions as you were shooting to further evolve the screenplay while you were actually shooting this?
No, I mean, it was this thing. I think Mary felt very confident, and as she should be in her skills. I wasn't really called on at all, which was fine. You know, in theater, I'm the mother bear all the way to the end, to opening night, to the last word, because directors in theater come and go, and the writer has the last word because yours is the Bible. Right. But in film, it's different, and that is why it is a director's medium. The director has the last word. The director is the storyteller. You are the story man or woman, but they are the storyteller. I am the storyteller in theater. So, you know, what she did, there's things that are missing. There's a whole really funny sequence, but I didn't miss it at all, of Lee getting a side job with this dreadful sort of Upper West Side soccer mom, and the battles they have. That was sort of drawn from the books. But the movie didn't need it. Very smart cuts. You know, it's I believe, you know, having cut my teeth in musicals, going to screenplays was very easy because a musical has to be like haiku. It cannot have an extra word, or else the whole thing goes blah. So screenplay is very much the same. And then Mary brought a really good eye on what to hone and shape. And you know, the movie flows beautifully. And I wish there was a way to just. She would be the first person I mentioned if I won, because you know, it's the kind of thing where, when you do your job that well, you disappear, and you're not going, hi, this is me, because the audience is right there in the middle of the story. They're in the middle of the imaginative world. They're not going, what a directorial vision that is. They're just right in the middle of it. And so I think sometimes that's you can overlook that sometimes. I always try to be mindful of it. Like, oh God, that dinner was great, whatever was great. There's credit there. You know?
You make an interesting point about theater and film. You know, theater is the writer, the film is the director, and, you know, television is the producer. That's king. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the way that this film unfolds, when I saw it, I was at Telluride. That's where I saw it for the first time, and which is a great place to discover a film like this. So, as Lee keeps forging. And as she gets Jack involved, and he starts selling it too, you know it's only a matter of time before the gig is up. It almost plays out like a suspense type of movie.
Yes.
Because you are waiting for that moment. Can you please call me right away?
Oh,
And
where's
it's
the
like,
stomach
shit.
drops. Yes.
Yeah. But like, how much of that sort of suspense did you sort of bring into your screenplay, any version of it? Because it does feel like, it didn't feel like suspenseful, and then just sort of like the shoe drops and you're like, oh great, perfect, that's it. You know what I mean?
Yes. I don't know. It's wonderful. I mean, I'm a believer in karma and balance. I'm a believer in God as being this ultimate storyteller that we just cannot really understand at all with our little primal brains. But God sees the beautiful geometry of story in our human lives, and we're the protagonist in each of our tales, so we can't see it. But there's just the story itself, the way it lays out, and the movie is so oddly close to the book in its structure, kind of remarkably so. Just that it all the way to the end. It's Lee Israel herself who sets the suspense.
Yeah.
Because you sense her giddiness, you sense her going, oh my God, this is my place. And it's the wrong place.
Yeah.
You know, and my joke is that it actually was a victimless crime. You just had to give it some time. Because yes, the Lee Israel forgery is not worth anything now, but wait till the movie comes out in 20 years, or, you know, and then you'll have something, you know, quite valuable on your hands. I would love one myself.
Yeah, so as a screenwriter, and you're watching the first cut that you're seeing, the first straight cut that you're seeing, and you're seeing this chemistry between Richard and Melissa. Like holy shit, this is like gold. It's magic. Because that's, you know, when you get that kind of chemistry, you're in great shape, you know?
Well, it's the generosity of both of those actors, because I mean, you've hung out with them too. I mean, they are truly what they appear to be. They are that authentic and genuine, and you know, they do that thing that people on that celebrity level must, is you inhabit your status all the way, but then you don't go any further, and it's exactly what they are. And you can sense their generosity and their affection for each other, even though they met rather shortly before the shooting started.
Yeah, sure.
They're sort of their higher selves have consorted in many other lives together, I imagine, and so it was just this wonderful meeting of their minds, and the whole movie is so full of authenticity. I mean, the fact that I begged them to use Julius. I said, please use Julius Barr.
Yeah.
And so to have them together in Julius Barr gives it another layer of realness. And, you know, I mean, for me, Justin Bond, who's the drag singer, has been a friend of mine since 1993. I mean, we've had all sorts of adventures together in upstate New York on New Year's Eve, in redneck country, in dresses, trying to pull our SUV out of the snow. Like that kind of thing. So for me, it's really lovely. The whole movie just is very rich in sort of subtle connections.
Was there a scene that you found, like, if you wrote it fast, and was there a scene that you felt like it just took a while to nail it, you know, or did it all just sort of like kind of happen, you know, at the same time, you know, the same sort of vibe? Did it all happen organically and easily from start to finish, or were there scenes that were really, really hard to write, you know, until you felt like you nailed it?
I mean, I would say yes. I mean, it's just interesting because I had the most wonderful person put this beautiful polish on it, Nicole. So it's I can't, you know what I mean? I can't. In a way, it's sort of hard to say, to even remember really.
Sure.
What was hard and what was not. I think that the whole thing of how to how to communicate the audience, the heist. It was a lot of those sort of very, very technical storytelling details. If you lay this in here, so this pays off later. The subtle things that you do. That was the real challenge of the film. So that when she does have the TV out, forging the signature, that there's a real sense of fascination and delight as you see this world unfolding before her. You know.
I want to open up to the audience if you have any questions, and there is one right there.
So about your process, how many times did you read the book before you wrote the screenplay?
Great question.
I would say probably read it twice, but then as I wrote the screenplay, I mean, the book was open, and it would literally be, going through it. It was always open by my laptop, and then, I'm a believer, and there's a lot of the dialogue in the book is in the film as well. Some of the things that get big rolling laughs are from Lee's mouth, from a typewriter.
Why change it?
Yes, no, exactly, and so it was. It's the kind of thing where you want to leave some wiggle room so your imaginative self isn't confined by it, but in a weird way, it was like I was forging Lee herself.
Oh God, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was this sense of I've never thought about it that way, but it's actually true. Yeah, I mean, it was the same.
Irony.
It was the same sense of going like, oh, here's this brilliant mind. I can be this brilliant mind,
Yeah.
And I'm pleased because in some of the forgery letters are some things that I put in. So I was like, oh, this is really good because I'm forging Lee, you know what I mean?
Right. Anyone else have a question? Actually, I was going to ask about the morning of January 22nd, which was the Oscar nomination.
Oh God, that was so bizarre.
What was that like for you? Like, did the phone ring, or were you watching it online, or?
I stayed up. I kind of hadn't slept all night because I was telling myself, "Oh, doesn't matter, Jeff. Your ego does not rise or fall on any trophies." but I wanted to just. I mean, as with the Tonys, I wanted to go just experience the weirdness of all of it.
Oh, yeah.
The wonderful. It's just so. It's really fun. So. Of course, I wanted to get a nomination, but I wanted other people to get them more than me. So I was really, my phone exploded. I couldn't quite figure out where to watch it online, and then suddenly my phone went boom, and it was the first one was Barry from Fox Searchlight, and then the second one was Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Oh.
Yes, he sent me a shooting text because we wrote a show together, and then it just was all day, and it was like It was like trying to climb up this mountain that kept getting bigger before me. In the last 5 calls, I was like, I have to call my parents. Okay, bye. Click, and then the phone would ring again. So it was really great. Sort of these lodestars from my life checked in, and I'd just gone through a very, very difficult period on Broadway with a show that was the most heartbreaking thing ever could happen to an artist. I can't imagine anything worse. And it was really nice to have a sort of balance return a little bit with this, and it will all work itself out in the end. But it was just a nice sign. I was just joking outside because this is my first produced screenplay, and Avenue Q was my first musical I ever wrote. So I'm going to do a rap album next. Go into all sorts of other industries, but just do one.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Whitty, congratulations.
Thank you, everybody.
Congratulations.